Guys, welcome to another Death Knight guide here for Mythic Plus Dungeons. As this season's gone on, we've seen quite a resurgence across Death Knight. Getting right into the talents, though, we'll start with the Frost trees. We already went over the class tree, holy, but this is your pretty much standard loadout for Mythic Plus. You kind of come down this right side here down to Everfrost and Gathering Storm to buff our Remorseless Winter damage, which is a lot of our damage in the Mythic Plus key. We surprisingly don't take Chill Streak in Mythic Plus. That just isn't really worth the point. Coming down the left side, we come down here, we pick up Glacial Advance for AoE. We come over here, branch to get Frostwyrm's Aid during Pillar for more AoE in keys. 1 point in Strength, we'll talk about that later. Ice Cap to make our Pillar of Frost cooldown about 45 seconds-ish. And then following down with Avalanche for more AoE from Howling Blast into Frostwyrms, and Absolute Zero for the cooldown on our Frostwyrm, and which is a nice little pseudo interrupt. Coming down the left side, we're getting a bunch of legendaries. Obliterate deals more damage, and refunds runes. Down here into Bone Grinder, and finally into Obliteration, because Obliteration is the go-to for Mythic Plus this season. No more Breath of Cindergosa. We are big Obliterate mains now. You don't even have to take Might of the Frozen Waste anymore. That's just built into the kit now. So you don't have to waste a point just to go two-handed, which is the ideal way now. Two-handed Obliteration is pretty much what we do now. And so things you could change up here in this tree. So this is pretty heavily AoE focused. Frost's single target is a little worse than Unholy's, but its AoE helps make up for that. If it's a really high tyrannical key with some really hard bosses, you could potentially take out a point in Glacial Advance, put it into Enduring Strength for more single target. You'd lose quite a bit overall from that. And you could also take one out of Absolute Zero to put into Enduring Strength. That would be the only thing I would recommend to change up here. Everything else is pretty required, and both of those, out of those two, I think I'd rather take one out of Absolute Zero and put it there. Glacial Advance, it's a lot of damage in AoE. I'd probably keep that and take one out of Frostwyrms. I haven't run into the problem yet where we don't have enough single target damage, so I haven't even had to do that. But those are just some things you could do if you want to. Swapping over to the class tree, pretty much the same as the Unholy tree. I guess a couple controversial picks I have in here are AMZ and Asphyxiate, but for my group comp, having extra stun is nice, and having this extra pretty much defensive for our group is nice on high keys, because there's a lot of damage going out in high keys these days, and helping your healer out anyway is good. Some things you could change if you don't want to take Asphyxiate. You could put it into Permafrost or Improved Death Strike. Those both work. Then you can fill out the rest of your tree. As you can see, I have one more point now because I took it out of it there as well. You can put it into your Unholy Bond for that, or you could get rid of the Necropolis, 1 point in there. Or you could... Oh, no, you can't actually take that tree, but... That's kind of what I run for the most part, is some combination of 1 point in Will, Unholy Bond, Asphyxiate, AMZ, Death Strike, Permafrost. Some combination of that is usually what I'll run. Those are kind of your flex nodes. Perma, Improved, AMZ, Asphyxiate, and then Will and Unholy Bond. You could swap points there. But this is kind of the standard build that I run. If we really don't need a stun, you could. I think I would recommend Death Strike over... actually, they're kind of equal, so whatever fits you, pretty much. Yeah, that's pretty much it for talents. Going over for the most part. I don't think there's anything else to go over there. Let me check. No, that's pretty much it. Moving into stat priority. Pretty much you want to get your haste up to around 25-ish plus %. Biceps and the Death Knight Brains have found out that that's when you get an extra global inside of your Pillar of Frost window. So you want to get to 25 plus % haste for an extra global inside Pillar, which is very important. We'll talk about that later. And then you kind of want to split between crit and mastery. My stats don't really reflect that right now, as you can see. I have quite a bit of mastery. but you kind of want to split between those, and always sim yourself when you get upgrades to see what's going to be best. Dungeon Slice is really good these days. Moving into gear, I guess, based off of that. I guess another reason why I don't have as much crit as I would like is because I have haste first weapon, but that's just what the Vault Gods gave me. Hopefully I'll get a crit haste weapon at some point, and that'll be good for a Frost, or even crit mastery, honestly. But alright, moving into gear. Trinkets first, get a vial. Absolutely get a vial. You get a lot of strength, you get a lot of mastery from it. That should be, you should just be chain running under rots until you get a vial, pretty much. And then outside of that, you probably want a stat stick. You don't really want a second on use. This kind of is technically another on use, but it's really not. Anvil is actually significantly better for Frost than it is for Unholy because it procs off Obliterates, not Scourge Strikes, and we Obliterate all the time as Frost. So, this is just what I've gotten from the Loot Gods. Ideally, you're going to want to get Neltharion is called Suffering. So, running Echo of Neltharion every week, if you can. Have been doing. Still no drop, sadly. But that would probably be your best. And then I would run that, or Dragon Scale, or Chromatic Essence, or Pocket Anvil. Some combination of those is what I would run for your second trinket. None of the dungeon trinkets really stack up to those. You could just get a dungeon trinket sim, whichever one's best for you, but I'd recommend going into raid and picking them up. Raid's pretty easy these days, at least up through heroic, so that's what I would suggest. Outside of that, just kind of balance your stats with the gear you get. You can change your stats on crafted gear. Right now I face mastery just because Unholy, but you can change those to fit your stat needs pretty much. One thing I would do here, I might actually change these enchants to crit for Frost. This is just my Unholy build right now. I'll change those to crit. That might help balance out my haste and or my mastery and crit a little more. Moving into embellishments. At the moment, I'm running one Shadow Flame patch and allied wrist guards. You're going to want to run some combination of that or Lariat once you start getting full sockets again. Once I get a head and a wrist socket, I'll probably switch out either the Shadow Flame or the wrists for Lariat, because those stats are for us as Frost. But not until you get full sockets is Lariat really worth it, I don't think. But like I said, I sim myself all the time, so once I get some more sockets, we'll see if maybe if the fourth socket makes it better to be running Lariat than one of these other embellishments. We're pretty flexible in the embellishment game, so like I said, I would sim yourself to see what combination of embellishments in the gear you have is better for you. I wouldn't try to just force something because I said to. Moving into our tier set. Our tier set is just big time dragon based. The Howling Blast damage increase is nice because that helps us in our pillar windows. We get that stacking consuming rhyme increases our next Frostman's Fury. And then, like I said, the Pillar of Frost calls down a dragon at 30% effectiveness when you first use it, which ties very nicely into Pillar and the 4-set, and the 4-set causes enemies to take increased damage from your crits. So during your Pillar window, every killing machine you consume is doing 20% more damage. And then throughout your entire Pillar window, you're weaving Obliterates and Rhyme proc Howling Blasts, and those rhymes are stacking, and at the end of your Pillar, you use your actual dragon, which is just super buffed from consuming the rhymes through your whole Pillar. So it kind of all revolves around weaving and dragons. One thing to watch out for in keys is just watch where you're facing when you're going to use Pillar, because you will accidentally butt pull things when your dragon goes flying out when you hit Pillar and forget that it shoots a dragon out. I did that pretty early on in a freehold. I pulled a giant crusher onto Sharkbait boss, so that was a little surprise. That's how that worked. Moving into the rotation, we'll talk about that a little more right now, actually. So, our rotation, it all revolves around our Pillar window, pretty much. So, what we're going to want to do is on... Actually, we'll explain Pillar first. So, when you're in a Pillar window, Every rune you spend increases strength by 2%. And so when you're in Pillar, you're pretty much just weaving empowered rhymes, which then give you Killing Machine procs for Obliterate, which, I guess if you don't know what Killing Machine, you should go over that. They make your next Obliterate deal frost damage and always crit. And guess what? Our Master increases our frost damage. So that changing to frost and always critting, huge for us. So that's what the goal of your Pillar window is, to just get as many Killing Machines and use them as possible. With Fatal Fixation, we can get a couple stacks of Killing Machine, actually. So if you pre-stack 2 Killing Machines before your Pillar, you can get those 2 and just slam 2 Obliterates in a row off the bat with D&D, which the damage. Well, consuming Killing Machines with Bone Grinder increases our crit. So our quick autos we're getting in there can also grant us more Killing Machines. At 5 stacks of this, we also just do 20 more damage. And then Cold-Blooded Rage helps us in the single target department where we're not Glacial Advance and we're using Froststrike to give us Killing Machines. And then our Capstone Obliteration is the reason this all ties together. Every single spender grants us a Killing Machine. And has chance to get us more runes to just keep those Obliterates rolling, pretty much. So, what actually is the rotation? So, inside of our Pillar, like I said, all you want to press is either Howling Blast, Glacial Advance, Froststrike, or Obliteration. You're either generating a Killing Machine, or you are spending it with an Obliterate. So you want to pop all of your buttons before you actually pop your Pillar. So when we're running into a pack, say this is our pack here, we're going to run in either Remorseless Winter or D&D. Actually, no, D&D yet. You'll want to run in Remorseless Winter, Rune Weapon, Raise Dead, Abomination Limb, your trinkets, and then you pop your Pillar, then you pop your D&D, and then you're just weaving. You're hitting Obliterates, you're hitting Howling Blasts, and then when we get to the end with 1 second left, that's when you pop your Dragon. Because at the end of that Pillar window, that's when your Dragon is at its biggest stacks, I'll call it. So with about 1 second left, you'll rip your Dragon and it'll do max damage in the pull that you just did. So running back through that again, because that happened quickly on the screen, you can always rewind. But you'll be popping your Remorseless Winter before pull. You'll be popping your Rune Weapon, your Raise Dead, your Abomination Limb, your trinkets. Apparently I didn't hit Vial right there. Oopsies. Popping all those. Then you'll hit your Pillar. Then you'll want to hit 1 Howling Blast or Advance or Frost Strike. Then you'll drop your D&D as your second global in the window. And then you'll start hitting your Killing Machines or your Killing Machine generators. And so in AoE, your Killing Machine generators will either be a Rhyme Empowered Howling Blast. There's a Rhyme. Glowing Big Killing Machine. Rhyme. Alright, so that stopped. If you don't have a Rhyme or a Killing Machine, in AoE you'll be pressing Glacial Advance. That'll be getting your Raise Rise stacks and everything, just increasing frost damage the enemies take. And enough of those, and you should get a Killing Machine proc. I got pretty unlucky right there, apparently. But the other thing to keep track of when you're using your spenders are your Unleashed Frenzy stacks, which is right here. Damaging enemy with a runic power ability increases your strength by 2% per 10 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. You want to have this at max stacks pretty much the entire dungeon. And that comes from Glacial Advance and from Frost Strike. Either one of those will give you a stack of it. So in AoE, you're pressing Glacial Advance. In single target, you're pressing Frost Strike. So again, combat, coming up to a pack, Remorseless, Weapon, Undead, A-Bomb Limb, your trinkets, and then boom, there we go. And now we're just weaving. Obliterate, Rhyme, Obliterate, Glacial Advance or Frost Strike, Obliterate, Dragon at the end, and then just continue. Obliterates. Pretty much the easy thing about Frost is you're just hitting whatever button lights up. If a Rhyme lights up, you're hitting it. If it doesn't, you're hitting Frost Strike or Glacial Advance, depending on single target or AoE. There's a Rhyme, hit it. Glacial Advance, Glitch Advance. Didn't get one for a minute there. You don't want to cap on runes, so you might want to spend a Obliterate, but that's pretty much our rotation. You're just weaving in Killing Machine proccers, and then you're hitting a Killing Machine when it procs. So hit up the pretty light buttons, and that's pretty much how you play Frost. But the real, like I said, the most important thing is when you're in a pillar window, all you are pressing is something that generates a Killing Machine or a Killing Machine spender. No other buttons. Every global inside a pillar is just so important. I just broke the rule. I just pressed Remorseless Splinter right there by accident, but like I said, for the most part, you're hitting Obliterate, you're hitting Glitch Advance, you're hitting Riot. That's it. Or if you're in single target, you're hitting Frost Strike. As you can see, there's our stacks for our Unleashed Frenzy, but that's it. Hit the buttons light up. If buttons aren't lighting up, you're getting unlucky, because you should pretty much always get procs of something. And yeah, so that's pretty much our entire rotation. And then as far other things to keep in mind, always line up your Vial and your Frostwyrm's Fury. They're both 1.5-minute cooldowns. That lasts for 18 seconds, so it lasts for your entire pillar window, so you don't have to worry about delaying your Vial or anything. Just macro Vial to your pillar. Or don't, if you don't want to, you can just press it manually. And always make sure to press Frostwyrm's Fury as the last global inside of your pillar window. And that's it for rotation. We can talk a little bit about consumables. Whetstone or Waitstone, depending on what weapon you have. Just use the feasts. Obviously, the new elemental potions of ultimate power you'll want to be using. Make sure you have healing potions to help your healer out. And then either File of Tepid Verse or Iced File of Corrupted Rage is the other one. Use either one. Kind of dealer's choice there. Corrupting Rage is definitely better for Frost than it is for Unholy, so keep that in mind when you're making your decision. And then Frost has all the same defensive capabilities as Unholy, so make sure you're helping your healer out. You have AMS, you have all the same buttons as it goes Unholy. So you shouldn't be dying in a key due to lack of healing. If you're dying, you're probably just eating a mechanic and it's your fault. Happens to me all the time. But you have Icebound, you have AMS, you have Lichborn. I talk a lot about defensives in my Unholy guide. And I'm going to be coming out with a defensive specific video for DKs and how you can utilize all those to the maximum potential in keys in coming weeks. So that's it for Frost. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully you can get some big Frost keys in now that Two-Handed Obliterate's back and it's quite competitive. So with that, leave a like, comment, give me a subscribe if you want to see more of my content, and let me know what you guys think. Thanks for tuning in.